All right. Welcome, everybody, to uh, just a fabulous hour. I think you're going to absolutely love this hour. You know, the mission of the Rise community is to assist people in having a deeper relationship with God and living their best life. And today we're going to focus on overcoming the obstacles with my guest, my dear friend, Daniel Nahmod. And Daniel is a singer-songwriter based in Orange County, California. He's a producer. He's a humanitarian. He has performed his profound, heart-opening music to people all over the country. He's been in 45 of the 50 states, Canada. He started his career in 1999. He has now sold over 150,000 CDs and downloads, over 10,000 of his printed songbooks. To date, he has literally transformed people by the gift of his music. His music has appeared on Saturday Night Live, The Voice, American Idol, the Super Bowl, the Today Show. The first time I heard Daniel, I invited him to sing at a remembrance service that we did for 9/11. And he did One Power. And it was so incredibly powerful. You could hear a pin drop, and then there was this huge standing ovation. And he's just absolutely something special. So Daniel, welcome. Thank you for being on the Rise community. We love that you're here. Thank you for talking to us about overcoming the obstacles in life. So I want to start with your life. Is that okay?
Oh, wait, I thought somebody else was going to tell me how to overcome obstacles in my life. That's not what's happening here. I
Exactly
was,
is what happening. That's
oh,
exactly.
perfect.
We're gonna
Great.
get you all set up by the time this hour is over.
Perfect. Perfect. I knew
Okay?
I knew my money was going to be well spent. Here we
Good
go.
deal. I knew. Absolutely. So I want you to talk to us about how you went from being a software designer in Chicago to being a
Mhm.
singer-songwriter in LA.
Well, there's a logistical answer and then there's a underlying answer. The underlying answer is that I was never a software designer in Chicago, even though I looked like it and pretended I was, if that makes sense. So only a year or two before I oh no, that's not true, Richard. I'm sorry. We met in 2002. So 4 or 5 years before I met you, I was sitting in a cubicle um, playing solitaire and Minesweeper, if you remember that game on old IBM PCs, and doing the absolute bare minimum of a job at a very good company. It was a dream job in somebody else's dream. Um, I was kind of naturally good at computer programming, and also even more so, I had grown up, believe it or not, using computers. Even though this is in the late '70s was the first time I put my hands on a computer, and there was only one for the school at the time. And then my parents got me a Commodore 64, and I taught myself to program. So years later, out of college, I was not raised at all to be a musician. I was raised to know music. I was given piano lessons. Music was valued, um, but I was supposed to do a good professional job, dress nicely, more nicely than I ever dress anymore, and have a boss and have an office. My mother was a, a banker, an attorney in major banks for 35 years. And I've only recently fully realized that basically her entire paycheck went to pay for her kids' college educations as I think back on it. So that was generous of her. And my dad is an attorney and was a law professor for 45 years, just recently retired. So music wasn't the thing. Professional job was the thing. Computer programming was something I'd been steeped in and loved, so I went to that job. And that job led to another, just for 6 years or so out of college. And um, the pay was real. The benefits, or I sometimes called them bribes, that was all real. The frequent flyer miles, the retirement. I dream about 401k. Those four letters and numbers swim in my mind in my sleep. um, and getting paid when you're sick and getting paid to take vacation, all these things. So I got 6 years of an experience of that, and it was clear to me why someone would choose this life and how good this life was. It really was clear to me, but it was also impossible for me to stifle the discontent I felt, the like deep wrongness of it for me. I think I probably thought I was a better actor than I was in terms of my acting like I belonged there. I suspect it was obvious to the perceptive people in the offices where I worked that I was the guy who, forget about coming late and leaving early, which was also true, um, because you can't buy passion, right? You can't even teach passion. So you can tell when somebody's enthusiastic about the job, and I'm sure, clearly not. But I also was the guy who was always whistling and humming. I was the guy, honest to God, who used to bring a guitar with me on the train, the commuter train, and stow it under my desk and go find a place to learn to teach myself basically how to play guitar during lunch breaks, which got longer and longer the more I was at this job, the last job of them. Uh, so the computer programming was a safe, conservative, estimable uh, place to land after college that looked right based on what I was taught was right. And I don't begrudge or blame anybody, I mean, specifically my parents, for raising their boys to feel like a professional job with benefits and with advanced degrees and with advancement and with savings for retirement, that all of those things were primary values for us. The three boys they raised were not raised to be hippies, and were not raised to be dreamers, and were not raised to be artists. We were raised to succeed in life in their by their definitions, and who could argue with their definitions. However, my discontent kind of boiled over in 1997 at that third computer programming job. I was dying inside. I was fighting with everybody I knew, especially my family. I was taking antidepressants, which has its own uses, of course, but at the time, looking back, it was really circumstantial depression. I was being depressed by the lies I was telling to myself and to others about belonging where I was. And it boiled over, or what would you say? Flooded over the ramparts, and destroyed my life as I had been building it till then. Now I look back and I was just a baby. I was 27, but at the time, I felt sort of like a grown up. And on December, the date is still clear in my mind, December 4th, 1997, I had a light bulb moment. I was just demanding for months, maybe for years, to know what was wrong, why I was so unhappy. And on December 4th, 1997, right around lunchtime, I had the moment of clarity. And basically, the voice inside my own head said, "You idiot, the reason why you're miserable is because you are lying for a living." And that phrase, lying for a living, kind of encapsulated it and broke the system which I had been building. And I will also add that I learned multiple lessons from the build up to that. One of them was that actually you can't actually permanently and truly stifle a discontent. Because I gave it, at least in my life experience, I gave it the old college try. I did it with food. I did it with antidepressants. I did it with therapy. I did it with fighting. I did it with making up. I did it with dating and getting engaged. I did it by saving money for a wedding. I was engaged at the time. I did it as best I could. I wrapped myself in that life and just kept telling myself the discontent isn't real, the discontent doesn't matter, the discontent will dissipate. It's someone else's voice telling you that this isn't your life, that that you're headed in an untrue direction, but actually the voice wouldn't go away no matter what I tried to do to essentially medicate it away, as we all do in various ways. Um, so I truly uh, learned, and I'd like to think that although I'm a hypocrite about almost everything I say and everything I sing, at one time or another, that was a lesson that I do my best to never unlearn, which is that if I'm feeling a persistent discontent, if it's in a relationship I'm in, if it's in a job I'm in, if it's in a career I'm in, if it's in a home I'm in, if it keeps coming up, no matter what I do, no matter how much I seem to be rearranging the situation to make myself happy, and if I'm never feeling right in it, then I never will feel right in it. It's not a matter of outlasting the discontent, at least not in my observation. And of course, you and I, in the businesses we're in, we meet a lot of people, and I'm sure you've talked to many people who are struggling with a voice inside their head that's telling them something's wrong, and they themselves are trying to talk themselves out of the discontent, out of that wondering. And in my story, I learned for myself anyway that I will never succeed at talking myself into something that's wrong for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
it
can
does.
stay. I can stay there, but I won't be. It won't be true, and it won't be happy in the way that I'm capable of being and feeling in the true, in the right place. The wrong place, I can stay. Nobody, there's no judge and jury. But so the realization was, I'm lying for a living. What the hell am I doing sitting at a cubicle pretending to care about the next computer program I'm being asked to write? I am obviously always entirely a musician.
Mm.
And that is a fountain of happiness for me that never runs dry, almost never runs dry. And so, long answer to a short question. I pulled the plug on that life. I said goodbye to the fiance, which was truly one of the most painful things I've ever done because it came out of nowhere. And I said goodbye to the career or the job, which was much less painful, except for the checks, which stopped coming. And a few months later, drove across the country and rented a little rent control apartment in West Hollywood, California, near my brother, and started singing for a living. And
Now, you had sang before that, right? You sang in Chicago, right?
uh, very little and badly. Well, actually, it's up to anybody else to decide whether I still sing badly. But at the time, yes, I was barely making music. The only music I was actually making was uh, a Sunday gig um, every Sunday morning for people watching who are familiar or maybe have never heard of it, a place called the Center for Spiritual Living. It has different names, different organizations, and so on. It's a very very liberal, non-denominational spiritual community of, at the time, maybe 12 or 14 people, and these lovely people every week gave me $50 to sing a song or two, accompany them on the peace song, which I'd never heard before. And then afterwards, they would tell me I was wonderful, and I would go home and do it again 6 days later. And that was the only music I was making at all for a year and a half. But I'll tell you, those people planted some seeds. I've thought over the years that they taught me the solution to all the world's problems, at least all the world's problems based on contention and absence of a core self-respect, and that is everybody should get a standing ovation once a week for 12 people for a year and a half, and see how they come out the other side changed and not needing the things they needed before in terms of consumption, in terms of competition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those 12 people really did me a great, great service during that year and a half.
Okay, but I know a little bit more about that story too. That's when you started writing songs every week for the
Yes.
minister's talk, correct?
Yeah. I'm neither proud nor ashamed of the fact that I wrote most of the songs I sang at those services during the service, during the talk, because I'm listening to the talk and I ran out of songs. See, I immediately understood the vibe of this. I immediately understood the vibe of what Bill and Elizabeth Arrett were saying, the ministers, the husband and wife. I immediately got it, um, which is which is a, it, I'm raised Jewish. I am proudly Jewish. But for me, I always was much more interested in kindness and gentleness than in the rules of the religion, my religion or anyone else's. So when I got to hear these ministers talk, and by the way, I'd never been in a church before, literally, except for cathedrals in Europe when I was in college for a semester abroad. I'd never been in a church. We did go into churches. We went to synagogues. And as soon as he started talking, the core of it was so devoid of like religious practice, that I'd been raised in very heavily. I got the vibe, but that didn't mean I had the songs. So I knew immediately Imagine was perfect and What a Wonderful World was perfect and a handful of others, right? The Rose and, their songs. But after about a half a dozen weeks or so, I started running short on those kinds of songs and just started writing them for those people, for those 12 people. And I'm not really exaggerating. It was really like 10 or 15 people every Sunday. And a handful of those songs, it's not my, I mean, I was just a kid. Uh, and, and, but I will say that 25 years later, writing nice songs for nice people is a niche that no one would have believed existed, but I started doing it then for those nice people, writing songs about feeling good and doing good and living up to what truly makes you happy and what's truly of service and feeling like you are living a life well lived and it's like my core is in my songs. I stopped lying for a living. uh, uh, when I started writing those songs, and then especially when I got to LA and carried on doing it. So that those songs became my first album. The songs I wrote for those people became my first album, and 23 albums later, I'm still doing my best to say something worth saying and worth hearing, to say something that makes a room full of people or even just one person feel a little better about him or herself, feel a little bit more connected to a stranger or a little bit more inclined to try something scary. Um, yeah, it was it's a weird, I guess everybody's origin story looking back looks like it was meant to be somehow. But for me, those 12 people, kind of wrapped me in a hug, told me I was ready or getting ready, and then I had that realization and drove away and have been doing this whatever this is for a living for 25 years since.
So you have any idea how many songs you've written the last 25 years?
Oh, easily 1,000. Uh, that doesn't mean it means the op. I'm gonna guess probably honestly 2,000 songs. However, uh, a big part of writing that many songs is that most of them are going to be bad, and that's a nice way of putting it. And many of those songs no one's ever heard, and please God, let them never hear them because they're terrible. And but that's the whole point, really. um, I don't mean to wax philosophical, but to some extent, we're here to talk about living life fully and so on. And um, if you are if you are writing a song and are unforgiving of its flaws while you're writing it, you've just murdered the creative process. The same as if you are building a business and are critiquing the mistakes you make along the way and telling yourself that you have no business in that business, when being in that business means learning how it works and making those mistakes. That's life. Being in a relationship and getting 100 things wrong. If I tell little kids, and I tell kids with bigger skin, so-called grown-ups, that the reason why a 5-year-old learns to ski in minutes and a 50-year-old may never learn to ski is because a 5-year-old doesn't wonder if they're going to fall, doesn't mind if they fall, doesn't look around to see who's watching them fall, isn't embarrassed, isn't ashamed, and doesn't consider it a failure. It's just, how do you learn to ski? You fall, and then you get back up, and you fall, and you get back up. And so, yes, I've written a lot of songs, and I have fallen a lot of times. And I will say that I do keep getting back up. It's not always easy to, um, but yeah, I keep getting back up. And I actually, to be honest, I feel like my best songs are ahead of me.
Isn't
It's
that
not
great?
it's not an idle wish, like I actually think, no, no, I'm still getting better. There's things I'm not getting. I can't hit the highest notes that I used to hit. I'm okay with that. I'm 52 instead of 27. Got it. But as a songwriter, as a producer, no, no, I've never been better. And Do you know what I mean? Just overall.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So, do you have a strategy for overcoming obstacles?
Well, you know what? Honestly, I've several. If you ask me a direct question like, what do you do when you hit a bump? When you hit a stop. Um, I have, well, almost everything I ever say, I have a song about that I've written, or 10. But I have multiple songs on the subject of surrender, which may sound at first like the opposite of getting over an obstacle or around an obstacle, but it is actually, as best I can, and it's imperfect by a lot, but as best I can, the way I approach an obstacle is like water does. Uh, as I have songs about water, and I love the metaphor of what water does, because water is a part not only of your blood and mine, our eyeballs, blades of grass, rain, clouds. It's a part of the making of and unmaking of everything beautiful on earth, but it also stops when it's stopped. It freezes when it's frozen. It locks underground when it's time. It emerges when it's time to emerge. It falls as rain. It washes up as a wave. It drops into an aquifer. It launches. My favorite is the marquee moment at Yellowstone of a drop of water, on the essentially the red carpet of water droplets at Old Faithful. So water encounters obstacles all the time. Water carves the Grand Canyon, but not continuously, and no one drop of water is responsible for the whole Grand Canyon, nor would it want to be. It's responsible for one grain of sand chipped away when its time comes to do that. Water pools when it's trapped for a while. Does water say, I'm wasting my time here? Or, like, another thing I think is, you know, can you imagine a water droplet saying, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not spending a couple hours in your toilet, dude. I was on Shakespeare's tongue, when he wrote To Be or Not to Be. I am way above this station." No, no, water stops when it's time to stop and flows when it's time to flow. So, as best I can, and I really do practice this. Um, if I encounter resistance, one strategy I use consciously is to back away from the fight I'm inclined to fight, rather than like push past it, which is sometimes feels appropriate, but more often I find there's a sneakier way to do it. There's a less combative way to do it. There's a a less exhausting way to do it, a less hostile, way to do it. We've all had that experience. Something doesn't go right. Like my wife just had a shipment. The Postal Service said it arrived and it's not up at the mailbox. So it's gone. I assume that means we're figuring that means somebody took it from off the street. Okay. So let's say, which in fact it was an insured package. She's very disappointed. The guy who sent it is not on the hook for it. He did his job. He sent this thing that she makes jewelry, so it's a tool. But the Postal Service technically insured this package. Now, Melina and I have a choice to make about how we walk into the post office. Do we walk into the post office mad at some vague person who, instead of putting it 10 feet down our driveway or in our mailbox, left it on the curb? Or do we walk in with the understanding that the person we're talking to was not the person who left it, and they are not our enemy, they're not our opponent, they're not our adversary, they want us to have our package. So working with an obstacle almost always gets better results than fighting it. Now I will.
You want to do a song?
What's that?
You want to do a song?
Sure.
And then we're going to open up for questions.
Okay. Did I answer your question about obstacles? I may.
Of course you did. You did.
Yeah, it's one answer. There's many, but yeah. Taking a breath rather than, stepping back instead of stepping forward, lowering your arms instead of raising your fists, changes the internal approach to an obstacle. And the only other thing I'll say about it is, I have also learned, and it's painful to admit, that most of the time, maybe all, but for sure most of the time, a no is as good as a yes. So if I encounter an obstacle, I may think it's acting against my best interests. But if you and I look back at our lives and we encounter and we think about the times when we were rebuffed, rejected, blocked from what we thought we wanted, where we arrive later makes all the sense in the world, but we couldn't know that at the time. So to fight the obstacle is to deny, like water never does, is to deny where we're being led in some sense. And it can offend our pride and our timetable, but it just generally turns out right, despite our preconception of where we were supposed to go. I've seen my share of struggle when I thought that I knew best, when I've sailed through a storm instead of stopping to rest. But it always seems the hardest when I've made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head straight into the wind? He doesn't pick a fight, spreads his wings and just gives in. And in the end he always makes it home just fine. Guess he knows that every storm subsides. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I'll let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know. where this river's meant to go. I have railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I've never won, for the heartache that I've felt. But it always seems when I let go of expectation and regret that life has plenty of surprises for me yet. I want to be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea.
Very good. As always, Daniel. Thank you. All right. I want to open this up to anybody who guys wants to ask Daniel a question. The best way to do that is on the bottom under reactions. You can raise your virtual hand and then unmute yourself, or I can unmute you. And I might have to help you sometimes form it in the form of a question, so that we can get to the gist of the matter. Jeffrey, you're first. Go ahead, buddy.
All right, get the guys. All right. So first of all, there's no truth. I was trying to write, don't let the sun go down on me, but I'm in Florida in a hotel room and it keeps following me. So I'm going to accept that. Daniel, nice job on the songs. I'm going to be a little bit combative because I'm from New Jersey. But my question is, you mentioned you're lying to yourself, someone who's done it his whole life as well. And then you mentioned you made 100 mistakes in relationships and written 2,000 songs. Do you think if you admitted you made more mistakes, you'd write more songs?
Yes. In fact, the inner critic stops me from being much more productive than I otherwise would be. Yeah. All kinds of projects take way too long because I am what my wife calls precious about them. You know, we have a running joke. I've known her for 13 years, maybe or so. Our running joke is I say, my next album I'm going to do in one afternoon, unplugged, very, very simple, just guitar and vocal. And she says, oh, sure you will. And I start, and 6 months later, I'm still recording the songs. The new album, the most recent one, came out in October. No joke. Some of you have heard me, maybe if you've watched any of my Facebook shows or anything, you know that my boy, Jude, who's 11, was completely and totally sick of every song on the new album before it came out because he literally said at one point in the car, Daddy, the song is done. Stop adding instruments, Daddy. You started this song when I was in second grade. So there you go. So yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right, Jeff, thanks for the question.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about your deep well of compassion. Like I have witnessed you be absolute, I think at the time we were walking around Houston after the hurricane in New Orleans, and you have this deep well of compassion that really is transformative for the people around you. So talk to me about where you think that comes from, that you can just be so generous. I mean, even being on this call with us today, you have this deep well of compassion. Where does that come from?
Well, okay. Well, thank you. And first of all, and second of all, you actually deserve the credit, not me, for us walking around, you and me, at the Astrodome, because that was your idea to visit the people who had lost everything they had, and in Hurricane Katrina. Okay, I can't answer. I don't know the answer to your question. I was certainly raised to be, the Yiddish word would be a mensch. I was certainly raised to be, a good boy. But the way that I not always successfully, but intend to empathize, um, and give. And I'm not a saint by any stretch. Like when the word humanitarian is in my bio, and it's true. I've done a lot of volunteering and giving. I have,
In
but
hospitals and
yeah,
concerts.
a lot. But it's not. But it has absolutely tapered off to a fraction of what it was before I had a baby. I mean, it's not like I'm never home because I'm always out. You know what I mean. So but I can't actually explain. I don't know. I don't know where the instinct comes from. But it is I can't deny that I can't deny that it's there. It is. I actually, the closest I've ever heard to somebody who described it was, I heard a Buddhist monk speak once, who said that, in Buddhism is about suffering and the amelioration of suffering, alleviation of it, um, and there's some aspect of Taoism and of Buddhism in my songs for sure. I'm not educated in either, but he talked about the fact that, that when other people go, this is him talking, okay, when other people go to Disneyland, they have a great time and they see Mickey in a costume and they eat a treat and ride a ride and go home. When he goes to Disneyland, he sees somebody wearing a costume in 100 degrees in direct sunshine who's getting paid minimum wage and might be sleeping in their car. And that's obviously a dreary, a bleak thing to feel when you're at Disneyland. But his capacity to empathize and feel what the guy in the costume was feeling, is, maybe the closest I've ever heard to describing what happens inside me when I'm hearing some story, or encountering somebody. It is true, Richard. I can't explain it. Um, like we're watching a video, a documentary about a jeweler who really innovated in, among other things, how he had he moved his factory to steam power. But before he did that, it was the documentary just kind of casually said that he had a horse powered factory. One horse was, powering a piston, a central drive and every tool was connected to the central drive. And my first reaction was not, wow, that's incredible. My first reaction was, who would do that to a horse? And I was so horrified. I'm haunted by it still. That's just how I'm wired. And it was not how I was raised. It's one of the things. I wasn't raised to be cold, but I wasn't raised to be that, and I can't explain it. And we see things in Jude too that are just things he came in with. Um, it's very valuable to remember, just like growing a business, just like with a relationship, honestly, just like a church, just like what a novel you're writing, whatever it is. It's important, I think, to keep in mind that you might be facilitating it, you might be cooperating, collaborating with it, you might be loving it to adulthood, so to speak, but you are not entirely in charge of it once it's outside your mind and body, once it's even just on paper. It's an interesting thing about songs. Once I can write them, I can record them, but once somebody else has them, they mean what they mean to that person. I don't own them anymore. In a copyright sense, I do, but not in an emotional or psychological sense. Um, so I can't explain where that came from in me, but it is real. Um, yeah, that's all.
I
Oh,
also
by the
think
way,
that's what.
it's a part of my songs. By the way, it becomes a part of all my songs because in my songs are absolutely committed to being real, and that real is real feelings and real emotions. And it's going to sound incredibly codependent, but I actually mean it. Is like a part of why I do that. I could sing you another song right now. A part of why I want the songs to be real is because I don't want somebody listening to the song to think, man, that guy's got it figured out, and I just don't. I wish I could be smart like that guy, enlightened like that guy. So, you didn't tell me not to swear, so I'll just say, I mean, I like my songs to be no bullshit zones, where I'm not coming on so strong that I have mastered or figured out something that I haven't. And the origins of that empathy and that, uh, I'm glad I have it, but it does, I will say, break my heart a million times a day. It does.
And I think it's also why when you walk into to play for a room, you have an emotional IQ that's off the charts. I mean, you're one of the smartest guys I know intellectually,
Well,
but you
thank
have
you.
an emotional IQ that's off the charts. You can read a room like nobody I've ever seen. I mean, you pick the right song over and over again. So
Yeah. Thank you. Picking the right song is one of my favorite art forms, and I just wish there was a Grammy or a Nobel Prize for it that I could that I could compete for.
right?
Um, yeah, but picking the right song is one of my it's truly one of my favorite things to do. And so because we've worked together so many times, one of my most painful things is to commit to a song in advance. Somebody will call me and say, "Will you come and sing in my service? What songs are you going to do next April?" And I'm like, "I could tell you, but it's not the best work I could do. The best work I can do is let me decide
Right.
then and there." And
And then
yeah, by the way, a part of this is a middle child thing, probably, the capacity. I mean, like, my feelings, I don't mean this to sound sad in any way. It's just a fact. I mean, my feelings weren't it's not like in my family everybody stopped and said, "Danny, how do you feel about that?" So I have a feeling that, no pun intended, that my radar was honed by being attuned to the other people in my family, and then it's definitely something that I am capable of in an audience. I can't deny that either. It's true. I pay attention to when people are getting bored or when people are emotional. Another one of the most painful things, of course, Richard, is when I have sung a song that struck a chord, again, no pun intended, and people are crying, and the person who comes up next completely misses it. Comes
yeah.
out and, like, the worst I've ever seen, I won't say the city, uh, the worst I've ever seen, I sang a song called "I Don't Need to Know Because God Knows." It is a heart tugging song. Sniffles all over the room, and a minister comes out and says, "Good morning, everybody!" And I'm thinking, dude, take a breath. Look around. Even if you don't want to be emotional, let them be. Give them a minute, break them in gently to your next joke, which he did not do. Came out like a, bull in a china shop type thing. So yeah, for me, the feeling is everything. The feeling of the work, the feeling of the song, the feeling of the performance, the feeling, everything. Um, so yeah, that's just me.
Okay, Betty, you got a question? Unmute.
Betty Bennett, nice to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you. So I had so many fun memories listening to you. And one of my favorite things is picking the right song too. So I love that. I have
Yeah.
a question for you that I've always wondered, and I actually am going to take advantage of this time to ask you. When you were talking about just coming in with things like your feelings and how you feel about
Mhm.
people, and I've always wondered in your music, one of the things I love so much about your songs is the surprises in them. Like everybody else writes a song, they do a da 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 and a bridge, and a da 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 and the bridge. But Daniel's songs do the da da da, and then all of a sudden there's just some little something in there that you totally didn't expect, and it's clever. The lyrics are amazing. And I just wonder if you purposely work on that. Do you intentionally want to do that, or does that just explode out of your head when you're in the creative process?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's
You
very
do know
nice.
you do that, right? I mean, you're aware that that happens, right?
Yeah, yes. Uh, I would say that I actually very consciously write songs to go to a place that remains interesting, builds on itself, goes somewhere satisfying as an ending. And I do like to drop a surprise in, either a line that's a surprise or a section. It's got to be. I can only assume, like as a songwriter, I can only assume there were influences of mine who did that. I can only assume that, like listening to the Beatles, A Day in the Life,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
every section is surprising. Um, I can only assume that that's the case. Even like a Bridge Over Troubled Water, the way it builds
yes,
and lands you in a place that you'd never know it was going to
yeah.
from the opening quiet part. You know what I mean? Like influences probably taught me to do that. But
Yeah.
it's definitely conscious. It's definitely conscious. Actually, one of the nicest compliments I ever got was from Melina early on when she started listening to my songs, and she said one of the nice things about your songs is if it feels like there ought to be a big moment coming up, you always give us the big moment that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
that we wish we would have. You give it
absolutely.
to us when it's coming. When it's coming, you know that we're expecting it to come, and you give it one way or another. You provide. You don't disappoint. Her
Right.
favorite her
Yeah.
favorite thing is Celine
Yeah.
Dion.
Yeah. I was gonna
And
say mission accomplished. If those are all the things you plan to do in a
no,
song, mission accomplished.
that's
It's
nice of you. Thank you.
I never, I mean, from the day that you wrote all the sacred,
Yeah,
all
Sacred Love
that
songs.
set,
Yeah.
yeah, that set of songs. I would think by now I'd be tired of those, but I swear I could and did many hours on the road when I was driving a lot on the weekends to speak. I would always listen to you. I never get tired of any of them, ever. So
Well, thank you.
you're definitely doing the right thing. You overcame all the obstacles and you're in the right place for sure.
No, thank
Thanks,
you.
Betty. So Daniel, if they go to danielnamod.com, they can download all your music, your songbooks, everything, correct?
Yes. Yes, danielnamod.com. They can also anybody's always invited to uh, if you have like a month in which you want to do nothing but lay on the couch and eat potato chips, there's probably a month's a month's worth of Facebook shows now. Since the pandemic started, I dragged myself kicking and screaming onto social media and started doing Facebook live shows right away in March of 2020 and have not stopped since. So there are probably 450 or 500 of those shows at this point. And every Monday, specifically now, I'm settled into a groove. Every Monday at 6 o'clock California time, I'm on live for about an hour, and every show is different. And in fact, I surprise myself most of the time with songs that pop into my head or stories that I didn't know I was going to tell. So, yeah, danielnamod.com. My Facebook is Daniel Namod USA.
Now, Joanne, did you have a question? You had your hand up and then your hand went down. So I wanted to open that up if you wanted to ask a question.
I do, however, I have to leave and I didn't want to be rude and ask a question and then pop off. However, I do have a few minutes. The question was, I really identified feeling so strongly about something when you said you left the job, left a fiance. That had to be such clarity and such strength to move forward, and as you say, still somewhat be hurtful, but you knew you were doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can identify so with that. Many other so the question basically is, when it comes time to make other decisions, and if they're not that clear or such clarity, I get stuck sometimes because I'm waiting for that strength of clarity again. And I can wait a long time or not forge ahead then. Could you address that at all?
Absolutely.
And if I have to leave, I am so sorry, because everyone else will tell me what you say.
I am literally in the business of not taking people leaving personally, so it's totally fine. Totally fine to go. But I don't know if you ever used to watch American Idol at its peak. But I remember watching American Idol and being struck by the pitch of the show, which was self-serving, of course, but whatever. The pitch of the show was this is their one shot at success. That if they get past this judge, get past this round, they are made in the shade. And if they don't, I don't know, they never really talk about it, but presumably you slink home and go to work at Taco Bell, or get it, get the job you don't want, kind of thing. And years later, after watching American Idol, years later, I wrote this. I won't sing the whole song, but I wrote this song also on the same album, the same Water album, which says, "So I came to the fork of a river, and I didn't know which way I should go. I had no map, no compass, no driver, precious little information to show. It can be hard in this life to make decisions, and it's an altogether common thing to fail. But as I surveyed my current situation, I decided to just go ahead and sail. There is no one way, there is no foolproof plan, no fateful final chance. I just wake up each day and do the best I can, and when I hear the music, dance." So that line is sneaky subversive, that there is no one way to arrive and no one way to succeed. Or put another way, I watched a film years ago of two guys who were climbing a snow-covered, ice-covered mountain, and there was an earthquake, and the ice parted, and they fell into a deep crevasse in the dark, and they looked at each other, and they're like, "Looks like we're gonna die here." And one of them said, "Which way is up?" The other one said, "I don't know. There was no light coming in." Right? They're encased in snow. And the other one said, "Well, let's just go that way." And what he said later, and they both survived. What he said later was, "We didn't know which way was up. We didn't know which way was down. We only knew that if we didn't move, we died. So we just went." And rather than, and this is something I'm, again, a hypocrite on, and I try, but I do my best on this one too, which is, rather than wait for absolute clarity, which, by the way, absolute clarity is only in your own head anyway. It's not like absolute clarity manifests as exactly what you're envisioning in the world. It just feels especially clear to go that direction. But rather than wait for absolute clarity, it's okay. You see, this is the tricky part, like the difference between the 5-year-old falling and learning to ski quickly and the 50-year-old never daring to. It's okay to change your mind. And it's okay to change your approach. And it's okay to stop trying something when you discover that it's not working. What we're told, that there's one way to go, and once you go, you're committed. Turning around is a failure, or embarrassing, or shameful, or will attract the judgment of others, or indicates weakness of character. What if acknowledging a natural stopping point or a natural blockage, acknowledging that the path you've chosen is not working, is an act of strength and character and wisdom and honesty and insight rather than weakness? That's the trick. I remember Gandhi once said something along the lines of, I think it was Gandhi, said, "If you're in a room filled with people and only one of them has a gun, the person with the gun is the most frightened." Right? And I know it sounds like a random association, but if you think about who is scared, the person who admits they've gone the wrong direction, or the person who keeps going for fear of looking like a failure? To me, there is no one way, there is no foolproof plan, there is no fateful final chance. It's okay to do your best and feel your way. I mean, Richard is in this business of feeling his way. Every entrepreneur, by the way, not every entrepreneur, especially, I think, is in the process. Actually, even giant corporations are feeling their way all the time. They do their best to to cover their failures with public relations and so on. But are they failures? If I develop 20 different burger recipes and only 3 of them become popular, were the 17 a failure, or were the 17 legitimate tries? So if you try 7 different majors in college, are you a failure? Are you flighty? We're told we are, but it's silliness. Far more interesting to learn everything you can, meet everyone you can, try 17 different approaches. 16 of them not working is persistence, it's not failure. So that means that I'm free to fail. You know, free to try without the certainty, given again that the certainty is a game I play anyway. It's an illusion anyway. Given that I don't know for sure anyway, I might as well. Like right now I'm building a woodworking business. I'm making little hearts, and I'm making pretty little boxes, and I'm starting to build some furniture. I love working with wood. It's a side business. I don't know how it's going to turn out, and I'm vaguely embarrassed, to be honest, when I say I'm a woodworker, because I know there's skilled woodworkers out there who can woodwork circles around me. So I'm trying it, and I refuse, on this principle, I refuse to be cowed into saying I'm not ready yet, I'm not sure yet, I'm not experienced enough yet. No, you know what happened when I put some of my wood objects on my table? People bought them. And I don't think people are buying objects out of pity, generally speaking. They buy them because they're nice looking. Guess what? I'm officially a woodworker. All my doubts aside, I'll find out how good it is. I'll find out how much I love it. I'll find out how far I want it to. But I can't find out unless I try. And I can't try if I can only do what I'm going to succeed at, because it's impossible to know in advance what I'm going to succeed at.
Okay, got time for one more, Daniel. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So you are one of the funniest people I know. So how do you use humor to overcome the obstacles of life?
Every day, all day, I am a more of a smartass than anything. My favorite kind of humor actually is the reverse humor. Is just like saying, I'm trying to think of an example. Oh, sarcasm. I was raised on sarcasm. The I use it all the time. And in fact, not only that's one answer, is that I am joking all the time. I joke, I joke on stage. I joke in a meeting like this. I joke all the time. I just, for me, it comes naturally to not take the moment so seriously that I can't relax a little bit. And by the way, relaxing a little bit, laughing a little bit, smiling a little bit, and taking things a little less seriously sounds suspiciously like the ingredients of doing the job and being a better person and being more present. You know what I mean? Because being tense and being ultra serious and ultra worried. I mean, Richard, you are such a talented speaker, right? You are not you are not Mr. Formal, all hail, you come in a tuxedo. You'll crack jokes, you'll be self-effacing, you're human on stage. And that is a part of the power of it. The other thing, by the way, is simply true. You know how people say sometimes, like in a relationship, like I dated a lot of guys, but none of them made me laugh, right? You've heard people say that. Maybe you felt that yourself, or maybe you've dated or married such a person who never laughed with you, or never made you laugh, or a smile looked like it would crack their face if they were to fully smile. For me and Melina, we giggle all the time. I am a goofball all the time. Jude is. By the way, that's not to say we don't yell at each other and get in all kinds of trouble. I'm just saying, like, as a family culture, we laugh and we joke. And I listen to stand-up comedy all the time. Um, Jim Gaffigan's one of my favorite. I mean, there's too many brilliant people to mention, but I listen to stand-up comedy. It you hear insights, you hear observations that are interesting, you feel things when you don't expect if they're really good at their job. But you also just have a laugh. And, as my uncle once said, life's too short and life's too long. To not enjoy yourself, to not be true, to not have fun, to not laugh. I prescribe stand-up comedians all the time, people I talk to. Especially, there's a few, but especially Jim Gaffigan in the last few years always comes to mind because he's extremely all ages appropriate, and just so insightful and humble and funny. But I'm a big fan of joking. Probably too big a fan. I'll never know how many gigs I didn't get invited back to. I'll never know how many times I got up on stage and didn't show proper, what's the word? Reverence for the reverend. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway.
Okay, Daniel, it's been an hour.
Yes, it has.
I want to thank you for this. I would love it if you would give us one more song. Do you have one more song in you? I realized I went over an hour.
Yes, I have one more song. I only have to decide whether I'm going to sing you something quiet or something that is the opposite of quiet. Do we have a vote?
And no, I always let you just go.
Yes, you do. Okay, well, then I'm going to press play on a track that's behind me on the computer, and I'm going to do for you a song that is, Betty, it is the personification of the kind of songwriting thing you describe. It is unlike anything I've ever written before. Released it just before the world stopped turning in 2019, and still plan on doing more with this song than I have done thus far, because it's an important song in my life, important song for me, like One Power is, like Last Song, a few others. But it's a fundamental one for me. It means a lot, even though it's going to seem extremely manic, but I think you'll enjoy it. So here is the song. Richard, I think you've heard this one. I assume you've heard it. Oh yeah, for sure you've heard it. You heard it in Prescott. All right, here we go. One more song. Richard, is this the easiest hour you've done so far? I barely let you get in 6 words, by the way. Just don't think
I knew it was going to be a fast hour, buddy. I knew it was going to be a fast hour.
All right, here we go. I could sing about mistakes I've made, broken hearts and broken wings. I could sing about my aches and pains and the one that got away. But it seems to me the world has its hurts to spare. Shadows are everywhere. I decided I've cried enough. There's plenty of songs about tough luck. I'm gonna sing about love. Gonna sing about love and lift somebody up instead of talking about tough luck. I can't deny I still dream about the glory, the Grammy, the gold. I cannot lie, I still wish sometimes my eyes and my heart would close. But it seems to me my family escaped the war and they never sang anymore. They lost everything they had. And if a song is all I can give back, I'm gonna sing about love. Gonna sing about love and lift somebody up. I'm gonna sing about love instead of talking about tough luck. Whoa, no more tough luck. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. Gonna take my cue from a few folks I look up to. I'm gonna sing about love. Stevie Wonder sings in the key key of life. Bobby McFerrin says be happy, it'll be alright. Marvin Gaye showed the way to what's going on. It's a wonderful world thanks to Louis Armstrong. Soul Asylum saved those runaway kids. John Lennon just imagined in the whole world. John Denver took the sky with Tina Turner to the sea. Stevie Wonder went to a higher love. John Legend to common to freedom. Pete Seeger's gonna overcome. Bob Marley just smiled at the rising sun. Eminem will lose himself before the moment's gone. Miss Jackson knows the knowledge is what we want. Gloria Gaynor maintained that we're gonna survive. Tim McGraw wants us to live like we are dying. Aretha got R-E-S-P-E-C-T. The Midler from a distance, the whole world we see. Tom Petty free falls. Leanne hopes we dance. Josh Groban raises us up. If we're hurting, R.E.M. understands. Irving D bless the USA. Van Morrison ushered in a brand new day. Whitney sang about the greatest love of all. Johnny Nash can see clearly now the rain won't fall. Pink knows we're beautiful. Christina does too. Rihanna sees us shining like a diamond. We keep walking like the Foo Fighters. Fight the power public enemy's head. Miley is a climber. Andy Grammer keeps his head up. Bill Withers, we can lean on him. Natasha's unwritten. Taylor Swift shakes it off again. Lady Gaga was born this way. Jason Mraz, truly glad to be our friend today. The Black Eyed Peas wonder where is the love. Desiree gotta be. Journey never stopped believing in us. Simon over troubled water made a bridge. Elton John lit a candle for Diana, he did. It's the same love. Macklemore was moved to pray. Izzy made a rainbow with an ukulele. James Brown, loud and proud. Bruce Springsteen laid it out the way it is. Queen made us into champions. U2 and Dr. King and the Power One. Sam Cooke made you look. Change is gonna come. Peter Gabriel ain't giving up on us. Just that we are the world. Save lives. No star they couldn't get. Irene Cara, what a feeling alive. Pharrell made us happy. Katy Perry lit a firework in the sky. Carole King, we've got a friend. Switchfoot dared us all to move again. Paul McCartney's words of wisdom were to let it be. And the weight of the world was taken off by Aloe Black and Avicii. So what do? I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sing about love. Sing about love. And lift somebody up. Instead of talking about tough luck. I'm gonna sing about love. There you go, a mission statement for Danny.
Daniel, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are an amazing soul. I love you with everything I am. You're brilliant, you're good-hearted. You truly are living a spiritual life at a very deep level, and I am so honored to call you my friend. So thank you, buddy. Thanks for doing this hour.
Thanks, Richard Dean.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
All right. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the 5 reasons. I definitely believe you got to be living in the moment. So stay tuned for that. Next week, same time. God bless you all. Have a great week. And thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.